Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, and welcome to Mastering Outreach, Connecting and Converting for Entrepreneurs. My name is Michelle Eisenberg, and I am a program assistant at the NASDAQ Entrepreneurial Center. And for those of you who may not know, the NASDAQ Center is a nonprofit building a better path for entrepreneurs worldwide by improving inclusion, access, and knowledge in entrepreneurship. And so, as you will see in the chat in a moment, the NASDAQ Center provides programs, resources, and exceptional mentorship to entrepreneurs across all races, industries, and geographies. So definitely make sure to check out those links and resources in the chat. And then just a couple of housekeeping items before we get started. First, let us know where you are dialing in from in the chat. Second, we are going to open up for live Q&A at the end of the event. So please make sure to submit your questions for us in the Q&A function at the bottom of your screen throughout the presentation, and we will try our best to get to all of them. And of course, none of what we do could be possible at the center without all of the amazing support from our sponsors, including NASDAQ, Lehigh University, Bank of the West, Airbnb, KPMG, Wilson Sonsini, Woodruff Sawyer, Microsoft Entrepreneurship for Positive Impact, BPM, and HubSpot for Startups. We are humbled by their contributions and hope you are grateful too. And so before we get started, we always like to launch a couple polls just to step back and see how everyone is doing in the room today. So this first one is going to ask, how are you feeling? Fearful, anxious, surviving, or optimistic? And I'll give this one a few moments for everyone to submit a response here. Thank you for participating. Awesome. Atlanta, New York, Texas, Michigan, LA, Florida, Oregon. Welcome. I'm going to end this poll and share these results. All right, we got optimism in the lead. That's always great to see, but definitely some feelings of surviving and anxiety. Hopefully some of those feelings can be addressed with our content today. I'm going to stop sharing this poll and launch the second poll. What is keeping you up at night? Finance, sales, marketing, scale, pivot, team, or surviving? And I'll give this one a few more seconds. Toronto, Maryland, Minnesota, New Jersey, Indiana. Welcome from all over. Arizona, Connecticut, Kansas, Canada, Grenada. Awesome. Welcome, everyone. Kenya, Pennsylvania. Thank you all for joining. I'm going to end this poll and share these results. All right. Oh, look, pretty close between sales and finance, but it looks like sales pulls ahead. Very fitting for our conversation today. And we will take all of this into account as we continue to develop programming for all of you. So I'm going to stop sharing this poll. And without any further delay, please join me in giving the warmest welcome to our special guest, John Hill, keynote speaker and evangelist at Techstars. John, it is so great to have you here, and I'm going to hand it over to you.
Thank you, Michelle. Appreciate it. And the polling is awesome because it gives me some insight on how to run this conversation. So much appreciated for all of you for joining in. I actually did see somebody I know from LinkedIn, Craig Tucker from East Lansing. I'm a Michigan State University graduate. Pop on for a second. So how you doing, Craig? For all of you, generally I would say I'm highly interruptible, and you can ask questions as we go along, but give me 30 minutes. I'm going to blow your mind a little bit about how to navigate relational capital to satiate primary needs, which is funding, talent, customer acquisition, knowledge share, mentorship. And I'm going to do it in a way that I think is relatively unique. Which is showcasing the affiliations that you should generate as first level connections to create the ability to get into your second level connections, which is the vast majority of where opportunity happens. As I do this talk, I'm going to intersperse some kind of thoughts about how to effectively navigate relationships through content, affordable emails, through etiquette, the approaches that work, and kind of a framework for best practices on how to negotiate it. I am currently the evangelist, so essentially storyteller for Techstars. I've been in this role for 2 years. The 7 years prior, I built out the network for Techstars. So cross-connecting our founders, mentors, investors, corporate partners, both online and offline around the globe. That network grew to about 40,000 people, largest entrepreneurial network in the world. And I've taken a ton of learnings from that. And I'm going to try to give as much as I can back to you. I'm also going to utilize some of the insights and knowledge that I gleaned working in a company you may have heard of before, LinkedIn. I was there before Techstars almost a decade ago, which is surreal. And I'll talk about some of the insights that I was able to peel away from Reid Hoffman, who was writing a book while I was there called The Startup of You. I always like to start with 3 takeaways in mind. And these are kind of core principles for me on relationships. One, build a network before you need it, so it's there when you do. I was the director of alumni career services at Michigan State University when the last recession hit. And the vast majority of our alumni, about 260,000 at the time, lived in the state of Michigan and were either directly or indirectly impacted by automotive, which literally drove off the cliff. And what I learned about the people who were revolving around automotive or worked in it is they'd only built networks around people who worked in automotive. They'd only developed their CVs or resumes around things that were associated with automotive. Their conversations, their rhetoric were only about automotive. So when those jobs dried up, they had to find jobs elsewhere, and they had to redefine who they were personally and professionally to do that, because they hadn't built a network before they needed it. So it was there when they do. And so that's one of the first pieces, cores to conversations that I have in front of audiences. Parallel for you in that instance is if your first interaction with an investor is asking for money, you failed. You have the opportunity to build that relationship earlier. In fact, you should build it 6 to 12 months before you need it, so that you have the best shot at securing money from the people who have access to it and they know you. And vast majority of investors will tell you they look for qualified deal flow, and qualified deal flow comes through people they know or through people they've met. So we'll talk about that in depth in a bit. The second one is build a quality network, not a quantity network. I learned that at LinkedIn. As I said, Reid was writing a book where he was trying to figure out what were the most effective affiliations that you have in your network that help you access second level connections. And I'm going to go deeper into that while I walk through LinkedIn with you for a bit. And then the third is what I learned at Techstars. And so for 9 years, I've been giving a talk within all our programs called Power of the Network. I just did it for the 234th time yesterday in Toronto with our program there. And I have just the unbelievable role to work with these entrepreneurs who have the uncanny ability to suspend disbelief and do something that nobody else in the world has done or do it better. You all are incredible humans. What you do, most people will never do. In fact, Kauffman Foundation just looked at the health of entrepreneurship in the US. Their last report, 2021, it was a 0.36% new start rate for companies, which equates to 360 people out of 100,000 people started a company. You're already a unicorn before you try to be a unicorn. And so like I celebrate you. It's one of the reasons I've stayed in this entrepreneurial space because you're incredible people. And I've had the good fortune of talking to our founders 9 years ago who have gone public, talking to our founders 9 years ago. And when we see them, they're 2 or 3 people get acquired by Amazon for $1 billion. Like I've watched that journey happen. So for all of you, I just want you to dream big and continue to roll on that path to create opportunities. Look for the helpers, look for, organizations like this, Techstars, to help you out. There are people who want to help you in the journey. But I celebrate what you're doing. So let's get into some of the meat, and I'll work on giving you some tactics that you can walk away from that I think will be beneficial. Share my screen real quick and jump into slideshow on this. So as I said, I'm Techstars, and I'm quasi doing the Power of the Network talk with all of you that we do in program. I'm not going to go into the depth that I do with our teams, but as I said, relating to the topic of this, I'll intersperse some of the best practices on communicating and connecting effectively for your various companies. So right off the bat, happy to give you my email address, john.hill@techstars.com. On Twitter and Instagram and now Threads, I'm at Techstars John. So feel free to reach out to me in any of those places if I can be of help. And don't hesitate to ask. I'm pretty responsive on social, so it's a great way to connect and engage with me. Within the Techstars network, I'm kind of known as like Morgan Freeman in the Shawshank Redemption. I'm the guy who can get you things. Techstars is my prison yard. It's probably where the analogy falls down a little bit, but I'm a good person to know because I've been in this space for a long time. I've been supporting entrepreneurs for about 15 years in ecosystems. So what you're doing, I understand the journey. I understand what's around you. I understand what your needs are, and I'll articulate some of that as we go along. But I wanted to give you a brief view of what Techstars is now. So for those of you who don't know, we're a 13-week accelerator. We take 10 to 12 companies into our program, bring them through that experience, surround them with mentors and investors. We get some equity as part of the process. We also give some funding as part of it as well. And then we spin the companies out into our ecosystem, our network. Our network has grown pretty large. We've actually had 9,000 founders and participants go through our program. So we're a small university at this point. We've had about 12,000 mentors volunteer their time to work and engage with us, 7,000 active in the last year. I always like to give, I was in charge of the mentor network for 7 years, or for a number of years. And I always like to give some insights on how, when we surveyed mentors, why they do what they do, because I think this is helpful for you on mobilizing mentors to continue to stay engaged with you. 4 reasons that mentors engage in programs like ours or this experience. Number 1 is altruism. They just want to give back. Number 2, they're interested in technological trends. And I'm going to revisit that in a bit, but they want to see what the world looks like 2 to 5 years from now. And early stage companies give them that view. So if you're in a large scale corporate, you're slow moving. All of you who are building things and at the early stages, you're tip of the spear, right? And that's an advantage. And we'll go back to that in a second. 3, they're interested in their own opportunities, board work, advisory work, C-level positions in your company. Number 4, another important one, they're interested in qualified deal flow. So if they mentor you, they get to know you, they may invest in you downstream. So keep that in the back of your head and bucket your mentors within those categories. We've had 23,000 investors invest in a Techstars company to date, and they only want one thing, qualified deal flow. The absolute best way that you can get an introduction into an investor is through somebody who's already been invested by that investor. So it's important for you to understand the world around you and who's been invested by what. Connect with as many startups, ecosystems in a very strategic way. Actually get to know them, but utilize those relationships to get into the places you need for that access to capital. So I'd be remiss if I didn't tell you, like, one of my favorite things about Techstars. I'm caught on stage years ago talking about give to your network with no expectation of receiving, pay it forward. And Techstars was a unique company. When they were recruiting me, I sat across from our founder, David Cohen, and he said, I want to build something that's not just transactional. And VC is historically transactional. And he said, I want to create an emotional hook as well. So those programs, those 13-week programs, those founders go in together. They feel like they're in class together. They get to know each other. It humanizes the experience. And Techstars has tapped into that to give access to network for people who come into us. And it's something that all of you can live by. We call it give first. But give first is a concept that's super simple. If somebody's in my world and they reach out to me for help, I respond. If I need something from somebody else in that world, expectation is they will respond. Super simple, right? Give first, like that idea that we can support and help each other out as we go along. So keep that in mind as you're building your respective companies, your communities, whatever. So I'm going to get into the meat of this now. This is where things get really fun. I'm going to walk in through LinkedIn and give you a walkthrough for about 20 minutes that you've never seen before. I'm the former lead product walkthrough specialist at LinkedIn. Used to give presentations in front of universities, within cities, ecosystems, conferences, trying to help people understand how to navigate, at that time, the free version. At this point, you probably have to upgrade to, at a minimum, the job seeker version, which is about, I think, $40 a month. But the value that's here is kind of hard to unlock, partly because LinkedIn's UI UX sucks. And somehow through time and OKRs, they've made it suckier. So they've hidden some of their best value. So what I want to do is turn that on its head and show you ways that you can trick this system to find what you're looking for. And I'm going to heavily focus on investment because that was one of the primary things that people were looking for. All of you who are looking for funding, I'm about to give you 3 sources for funding. This is a participatory example. So I'm going to have people in the chat sharing what they would like to see out of this. And I'll look at that information as we go along. But I'm going to start with something that is wholly unique to LinkedIn. If I go to my network, which is your network, if I go to connections, if I go to manage synced and imported contacts, I can export all of my first level connections. If I click this button, there's a little radio button that I can select. And if I hit request archive, LinkedIn will send a CSV file to my email on record of all my first level connections, names, titles, companies, industries. Any in-mail communication that we've had will also come in. So if you're using a CRM, CSV file is a fancy term for Excel. You can upload it into any CRM that you're using, right? And why that's important is you can start to sort by industry. You can start to sort by job type. And you can start to see, like you can do a relational SWOT. You can see where you're strong on relationships and where you're weak, and start to hire in or create strategies to strengthen the relationships that you need. So it gives you that unique view of what your network looks like and where the gaps are. If you're 2, 3, 4, 5 people companies right now, you can all download your connections, put them into one file, dedupe it, and you have every relationship emanating out of your organization right now. And again, you can do that relational SWOT for the company. LinkedIn's terms of service is super unique. It's actually implied communication on and off platform, which means LinkedIn InMail I can communicate through, but I can also take an email off a public profile. So it's in the contact information of all your first level connections that you can view. And you can copy that and email them, and it passes GDPR muster. Now, the challenge is in this download, the emails don't come with it. So you're either going to have to copy or paste. Or very industrious people, and this is kind of when I want to do earmuffs because I'm a former spokesperson for LinkedIn, have built scripts that will tie that data together. But just an interesting way to view LinkedIn that I'm sure not many of you have experienced, because you could see how far they hid that. So I'm going to jump back into LinkedIn, and I'm not a big fan of universal search. This is an iterative search. So as you type in words, it's going to fill it out. The old search I actually think was more effective because it filtered, and filters made a lot of sense to people. That still exists, just slightly hidden. So if you go to my network, if you go to connections, and hey, everybody who's connecting with me, if you go to search with filters, the old search that used to be a primary navigation, people, jobs, companies, groups, things like that, is still there. And then you have a whole host of filters that support and help you out. And so I'm going to start talking about right here, first level connections. And I'm going to go back to that quality network, not a quantity network. And I want to talk about Reed's book, Startup Review, for a second. He was trying to find who were the most effective relationships you had that you could navigate to create opportunities for the job search. And what he found was 85% of job opportunities through relational networking. It wasn't about who you know that was important, first level connection. It was about who they knew that was important, second level connection. Connection of a connection. It's defined as a weak tie. 85% of job opportunities come out of those second level connections. I'd surmise your business development, your sales, your market development, your investment opportunities. It's not about who you know, it's about who they know. Now, what's important here is building relationships that will move messaging from 1 to 2. So if I've just met somebody once and they're in my network and I try to utilize them to do that, probably not going to be effective. But he actually mapped out the most effective affiliations you have, and there are 4. For all of you, a framework on building your relationships from this point forward. Number 1, friends and family. So friends and family will run through walls for you. The challenge is a lot of times your network isn't big enough to help you out or aligned with what you do. I'm an evangelist. I was a network catalyst before that. I was an evangelist before that. My family doesn't even understand my job titles, let alone how to help me out. So I have to go to the second affiliation, which is university affiliation. So this is student to student, alumni to alumni, student alumni, back to institution, just to kind of play out how powerful this affiliation is. And I'm going to imagine what's happening here. But all of you who are on here, 117 people right now, look into your screen, and if a student from your university were to pick up the phone and say, hey, I want to learn a little bit more about who you are and what you're about, what you're doing with your company, whatever, by a show of hands, how many of you would take that call and I'm imagining it's most of you, hopefully all of you. If not, you're going to hell. I don't have that power, and I'm Irish Catholic, so I'm going to feel guilty about saying that for the next 24 hours. But the point is, right, most of you raised your hand. That's an affiliation that you can continue to tap into to support and help you out going forward. Third was shared work experience. All of us have worked before. Those networks are super supportive of helping you navigate other networks. So for instance, I worked with a number of exceptional people at LinkedIn. Those people now are running companies or working at high level in other companies throughout San Francisco and the world. If I see somebody's former LinkedIn in my network working at, say, Google, I can reach out to them and they're likely to respond to me because we have that relationship in common. The fourth way to build a most effective quality network is surrounding yourself with the people that help you in professional development. So any student groups, any associations, any experiences that help you with learning around what you're doing right now, there are people there who are tied to those that will help you out because you're part of those. Now, if you run those affiliations rise. But those first three are really where things cement. So just to broaden out your view of what your network looks like, it's not these first level connections that's important. It's these second level connections. And the amplification is pretty amazing. So now I can reach 1.8 million people at a first or second level connection, right? Now, too many to go through. And I'm going to start viewing the world through your lens. If you're an entrepreneur, one of the primary things you need is capital. So let's look at those people and start to create a lead list for fundraising. And again, I'm going to set you up on how you start to have that conversation with these fundraisers as we go along. While I'm doing this, people in the chat, if you can say what vertical you're in. So IoT, AR, VR, ed tech, prop tech, whatever, right? Somebody write what vertical you're in. I'll use that as part of this experience. So now if I go into all filters, LinkedIn's done something super interesting. They've created these industry codes that are based on what I call NAICS codes, it's NAICS codes or whatever. They're the old SIC codes. Government uses them as an umbrella around industries for tax purposes. They're used globally. So it's a good taxonomy to use to navigate information. And one of the umbrellas is private equity and venture capital. So if I come down here, I can see all the people I have at a first level or second level that are in private equity and venture capital. So I'll hit show results. And all of a sudden I have the 93,000 people I can reach that can help me capitalize my company, right? That's way too many. So I saw some of the cities coming in. Atlanta was one of them. I'm going to actually be speaking in Atlanta in 2 weeks. And so I can type down here, who are all the people in the metropolitan area, the MSA around Atlanta that are associated with venture capital. And I'll send them down to 294. So when I visit there, I can start to create a lead list of people that I want to have coffee with or meet up with. And then I can look at your chat and I can see, let's see, we are AI is almost like a horizontal now. All of you are going to have that. Digital media is an interesting one. And that's probably a good market for it. So if I come here, I'm going to put this in quotes, but this search searches this set. And so it's a Boolean search. So it's going to take that whole phrase off people's profiles. So I'm looking for people who have a thesis of investing in companies like me, right? Digital media. So geography is one thing, network is another thing, but now I can take likeness and associate it with this. And I can see the 27 people that are in digital media that live in Atlanta that are a first or second level connection. And I can see the relationships I have in between them. And so if I go down here, Chris Hively, Dave Payne is our former managing director in Atlanta, great human being. We just talked a week ago. Chris Hively is like one of my best buddies. He does ecosystem development all over the world. He's written a book called Built the Fort. It's great if anybody here is doing ecosystem work. He is one of the founders of MapQuest. Andy Sack is one of our former MDs for our Seattle program, runs a fund in Seattle with another exceptional human being named Chris DeVore. Bob Maas is our current managing director for Techstars Music. Bob just sent me a picture with another one of my friends from higher ed that I didn't even know they knew each other last week, right? So I have personal relationships with all these people who are popping up, and I can navigate those relationships to get into the people I want. So first degree is easy. You just reach out, right? And you want to construct the email that you send that, says, hey, how are you doing? Great to reconnect. It's been too long, whatever. I'm building something on this, would love your advice. advice is one of the most powerful weapons you have. If I'm doing it as an introduction, so affordable email, what I would do to Chris is send an email and saying, hey, it was great to see you in South Carolina at the conference that we both spoke at. Look forward to connecting again. Come fly out anytime, spend time with me in Boston or whatever. I see that you're connected to Anastasia, and it looks like she is, engaged in digital media. She's also in venture. I wonder if she'd be a great person. And Anastasia is actually one of ours. So we'll use Shachar, right? I can write a note to Bob and say, hey, Bob, just saw you the other day speaking to your program. Always good to hang out with you in LA. Would love an introduction to Shachar. Mind help me out. And then on that email to Shachar, this is when that second level or that second piece of advice I gave you on why mentors mentor is important. All of you wonder what value you have to larger companies. Your insights are unique because those companies are boxed in at doing very slow progression. You're moving at the speed of light. So you're tip of the spear. So your give in this instance to Shachar is, hey, I'm building this company related to digital media. And I think we have some pretty unique insights on how the world is working. We're doing some focus groups with people. They're telling us, hey, they want to go in this direction. We're building product in that. We have an MVP that I'd love to showcase to you, or we've wireframed or whatever, right? And I would love your advice on how we're doing. By the way, I'm happy to give you some of those insights that we just outlaid to you, like that we're learning from. That's your give back, right? They always want to stay ahead of the curve, and you're giving them a piece of information that keeps them engaged. Now, when you eventually have that meeting, if it happens, if it fills, right? I would ask for one thing. That's it. And generally lead with advice. So what should we do on X, right? Tailor it to who these people are. So make sure it's specific, showcases that you've done your research. Now, advice is a powerful weapon. If people give you advice, they're starting to become emotionally connected to you. You mean something to them because they've given a piece of themselves to you, right? Now, if you can keep them regularly engaged, so some kind of cadence to keep them engaged and connected with you, it's going to be, like I call it, being pleasantly persistent. Right? It's going to be super impactful downstream when you finally go to Shachar and say, hey, I'm looking, to raise some capital. Can you help me out? You're now qualified deal flow because they know who you are, right? Now, another way that I can look through these relationships or any companies that are connected to, or any founders that are connected to these investors, I can reach out to them and say, hey, how are you connected? If they say they invested in us, or I can look on Crunchbase, AngelList, whatever, right? But I can then say, hey, would you mind if we talked about our company for a little bit? And if you're open to it, would you make an introduction? If you get an introduction from somebody who has been invested by that investment firm that you're trying to court, it's going to increase the chances that you get looked at, right? So it's like essentially coming in the back door because they are getting pitch decks all day long through the front door, right? But they want qualified leads for relationships. So this was the first way to look at how to generate an investment list. Now, the second one, because those NAICS codes are umbrellas, but they're imperfect, I can work at Google and Amazon. I'm in information technology. I can invest in companies, but I'm not going to show on that search. So I can start to use search terms to help me find the people I'm looking for. So if I'm looking for angel investors, right, or angel investing or investing, right, I have to play with the terms. I can see the 65,000 people that are in the LinkedIn universe that have that. Now I can go down to the first and second level connections, my network, and all of a sudden I'm down to the 31,000 people that associate with that. And then I can take one of your categories. So we'll go back into chat. So consulting, media, HR tech is an interesting one. Let's try that one. So all of a sudden I can type in here HR tech. And again, it could be human resources technology, human resources tech, right? I'm going to have to play with that term, but let's see what comes up. And these are people who put HR tech. They've written this on their profile. So they've defined this. Oops. Go back. There we go. So here are the 37 angel investors that are associated with HR tech and how I relate to each one of them. And again, so Robbie Kwok was the person, one of the people who hired me at LinkedIn. Robbie ended up the chief of staff for Slack and has been integral in the integration of Slack into Salesforce. Robbie's company before that, Telepart, was acquired by Twitter. He worked at Yahoo before he worked at LinkedIn, like super connected human being. And we like to play basketball together. And I like to go out to eat with him when I'm in San Francisco. We're just friends, right? But we have all these business connections and experiences that we can share. So I'm a trusted relationship with him, and he can give me an introduction into Rolly through that relationship, right? And again, I can now see those people who are, related to angel investor or angel investing, right? And I got to do iteration of those search terms to find those people. But the second lead list that I've given you, now I want you to, in the chat, name a university that you went to, any university. Thunderbird. I've spoken at Thunderbird. That's awesome. University of Maryland. So I do a lot of these. GCU is a pretty good one. UNLV. So I just spoke at UNLV. Hampton. All right. I was a speaker at Morehouse 2 months ago. I'll do Hampton. I absolutely love that you're here. And I want, who is Hampton? If you can pop again. Is it Ayana? I didn't see. Let's see, where'd you go? Ayana, perfect. All right, watch this, Ayana. So I can go into Hampton, and Ayana, I want you to write something in the chat real quick. Do you know all the people tied to investment that went to Hampton? I'm going to guess that answer is no. Former president, that's a good one. Now watch. This was one of the teams I was on at LinkedIn. So this was one of the product teams. So we mapped longitudinal career data for every university in the world. So every user we tied to the institution they went to, and we did longitudinal career data connected to it. These university pages, super powerful. So again, university affiliation, second most powerful affiliation, you raise your hand kind of thing. Now I need to navigate the people who can support and help me out, right? Always hard to see. It's kind of opaque going through the university to do this, but you can do this for yourself. So this tool is actually built off the talks I used to give to universities. Our developers followed me around. They called it John Hill in a box. So when I click on this, it's the alumni tool, and it shows all the alumni of Hampton by where they work, where they live, what they do, what they're skilled at, what they studied, and how you're connected. And so now I can start to see all the people in my world that went to Hampton, right? An affiliation brings the barrier of entry down. If I try to have a conversation, right? Turns a cold call into a warm call. I can look at all the people associated with venture capital. And this is based on lightweight recommendations off people's profiles, so indexable information. And then all of a sudden I have the 35 alumni that are associated with venture capital that went to Hampton, right? So in my estimation, right, about 1 in 3 of these people will respond to you if you cold outreach. But if you have relationships in between, even better. So Bonin is the former VP of Mondelez, Oreo cookies and stuff like that. He had me on a speaker circuit with Gary Vaynerchuk called Brand You, where we went with kind of high performing professionals at Fortune 500 companies, training them how to be better professionals. And so if I reach out to Bonin, I could have him do a affordable email to John, right? So I can see how I can connect into that. And again, that university affiliation brings that barrier of entry down. But again, you can see all the people who are here that are potentially in my world to support and help me out. Now, I'm going to clear this and just use this as an example, right? Say I'm building a company related to artificial intelligence. I can look at all those people associated with AI that went to my school, and again, brings barrier of entry down, and see again how I relate to each one of these people. Susan Kellogg actually ran the, I think it was career services at UNC, University of North Carolina. Right, good connection that I have that could connect me into Curtis, and Curtis has some association with AI, so I can start to find my needs. Now, I'm going to take this in a different place. I I saw some of the cities come in. I think somebody was in Phoenix, Thunderbird's in Phoenix, right? Somewhere around there. And I saw Thunderbird pop up. Let's double check. So, yeah, Phoenix. So I'm going to switch. I just gave you 3 lead lists that you can build, and I'm going to switch to something, and I'm going to run this for just a minute. I'll be pretty quick on this, but talent. It's one of your most important things. Every hire at the early stage has to be the next best hire. I've spoken one-on-one with 1,600 of our companies about how they kind of grew and how they scaled. And there's some pattern matching that happens there. So super unique, from an insight perspective, is I found that the first 25 hires that usually happen out of early stage companies come out of network. So people or people they know, which is no surprise based on kind of the research that Reed did back in the day. But you generally do it haphazardly. So you're not intentional about your approach to talent. I'm going to teach you how to be headhunters really quickly. And what I found pre-COVID is 95% of our companies grew in their backyard. So if they formed a company in Phoenix, they usually tried to find talent in Phoenix first and then went global. Or 5% were intentionally global and went for the best talent all over the world. We'll look at that as well. Post-COVID, that's shifted to about 50-50. And so I'm going to use both approaches. But the interesting thing is at 25 hires, you generally hire somebody in HR to broaden the funnel. So this starts to dissipate a little bit, but be intentional. You can do this over a cup of coffee. Somebody name a type of engineer that they're trying to hire right now. Any engineer. Data scientists. All right, Craig, we'll bring it back. East Lansing, MSU, right? So imagine I'm using Michigan State University for this for you, Craig, but for everybody else, I'm building my company in Phoenix, right? Thunderbird's a great place to go. Data scientists might be tough because it's more of an MBA program, but let's see what we can do, right? So I want those people who are associated with Arizona, California, right? My backyard. So it's going to bring that number down immediately to 4,700, right? And then I want those people who are skilled at data science, right? And now there are 18. Right. And this isn't even a university meant for that. And by the way, I have an interesting anecdote about data science. While I was still working at Michigan State University, I got asked to come and speak at LinkedIn to LinkedIn employees. And there were about 50 people in the room then when I was talking about how we were applying LinkedIn at the university level, which is eventually what got me the job there. Like they made a job for me. And there was a guy in a lab coat in that meeting. And it was my second time to San Francisco, first time at a big tech company. And I thought maybe this is just San Francisco. Like it was just odd. But I later found out that the guy who was wearing that lab coat was DJ Patel. DJ Patel coined the term data science. He was Obama's first chief data scientist. Like that's crazy, crazy stuff, right? So anyway, data science near and dear to my heart. Now I've got the 18 people who are in data science that are at Thunderbird. And if I come over here, I can look at all those people. I could select first level. I'm pretty sure I don't have any first level. I don't have any second level connections. See if I broaden it out. But there are 18 alumni from Thunderbird that have been in Phoenix, potential rebound hires, right? Second level connections attached with data science. And if I scroll down, like Rizwan, hands-on executive artificial intelligence, Eric Bolin, the first person who comes up, I just had a conversation with about speaking at William and Mary the other day. He's one of our mentors at our Techstars Boston program. So I could literally reach out to Eric right now and say, hey, can you make an introduction to Rizwan? I potentially have a data science position for him. And again, you're already recruiting out a network first or second level, so I might as well be active about it, right? If I use the forwardable email to get into Rizwan and he responds, there are 3 responses that he can return with. 1, not interested. It took me 2 minutes over a cup of coffee to do one of the most important things for my company, find the right talent, right? And I'm finding it through qualified people in my network. And I know Eric, so I know Rizwan's good, right? Second, I am interested. You just qualified a lead for talent. You can do this in every one of your respective markets, right? I could go through all the universities in Arizona, University of Arizona, Arizona State, or I could look at MIT and look at those people who live in Arizona that went to MIT that are in data science and find the people that could potentially help me, right? 3, I'm not interested, but I'll share with my network. Who are people like Rizwan networked with? Other data scientists, other people associated with AI or whatever, right? And again, that opens up the amount of talent pool I have access to by doing something that takes a couple minutes to support and help me out. Now, I can also search these sets for the words like entrepreneur, founder, whatever, to see people who are like me. And so there are 3 alumni that have been a founder that are in data science, that are a second level connection, that went to Thunderbird. And I can use this for every university. And by the way, I can use that for that general search when we were looking earlier for angel investing, right? Boolean search, I can use a series of terms, localize it by geography, look at all my first and second level connections, and then reach out to those people. So be proactive as headhunters. For the next one, because we're kind of running short on time and I want to make sure that you can ask questions. Say I'm trying to sell into Google or name the company. Can't find Google. That's funny. Let's see. There we go. So this is Google's company page. So similar to that university page that I just showed you, all employees map to their company pages. And for all of you who have LinkedIn company pages, if they're in the early stages, first 1,000 followers, right? See all the followers here, first 1,000 followers. One of the things I would do is you can look at them as the owner of that page. I would start to bucket them in 4 categories. They're friends and family, they're rah-rah cheerleaders. They're people who want to use your product. So good source to go after. They're people who want to work with you, potential source for talent. There are people who want to mentor or invest in you, right? And so like it's important to be intentional about that view of information there. But if I'm trying to sell into Google, and you can do this with SMBs, you can do this with big companies, I'm trying to figure out how to talk with them, right? Now, this life button is Google utilizing LinkedIn to recruit talent. So it's a series of testimonials, a series of videos to show, hey, we're a great place to be, right? And they use words that are important to them. They'll do the same thing on the top of the job descriptions, right? So your SMBs will do that. Take those words and use them in your pitch of product and service back at them. They're telling you how to talk to them. For all of my people selling into SMBs, one of the small and mid-sized businesses, one of the hardest things to do, right? Because it's hard to pattern match other ones, like with Google, you know, Amazon or whatever, right? But LinkedIn's done something pretty cool for you as well. So this is the Google page, but if you look at people also viewed, they give you a lead list. So say I sell into one SMB, if I look at their LinkedIn page, I have a list of 20 other people I could potentially sell into based on patterns within the LinkedIn ecosystem. Last, that John Hill in a Box, 2 years ago, they applied it to every company page. So if I have an archetype for a decision maker that I'm trying to sell into, and so say I'm looking for people who are related to business development and have experience in data science, and they like golf, right? And there are none that like golf. Let's pick another sport. 4 people who like baseball and are data science and business development, right? They may be my sweet spot. So the words that I use can help me find and narrow into the person who might be best to pitch product and service to. Now, there's another group that's really good about this as well. So I'll use Michigan State University as an example, just for brevity. If I come up here, I can see all the employees that are, and we're back to that original search, currently at Google. If I come down here, I can deselect all the Google companies. I can reselect Google. I can go down and say, I want all the people who graduated from Michigan State University. Remember the number 2 affiliation and building quality network, right? And I want those people who have an understanding of, you know, data science, whatever, and do a search on that. And I now have the 24 people who went to my university that are in data science and are alumni of Google. If I reach out to them, they'll tell me the right people to connect to, the right approach. They'll give me the roadmap to pitch product and services to this organization because they're more aligned with me from university than they are shared work experience. Now, if I jump to the homepage, I'm going to wrap on 3 things really quickly, and then we'll turn it back to Q&A. Let's see. Who's viewed your profile? If somebody, you pitch product and service to somebody and they look at your profile, they're interested. They wouldn't look otherwise. So it's a good indicator, not an absolute, but a good indicator. If you pitch product and service to a company and other people are looking at it that weren't in your meeting, they're talking about you. Really good or spectacularly bad, but they're talking about you. So one way to view it. I'm a big believer of keeping your network warm. I go through notifications every day for about 20 minutes a day. If I see somebody moving from one location to another, I'll introduce them to people I know in that location, right? If I see somebody who's moving from one job to another and I know people, the company they're going to, I'll introduce them to people I know there. If they're celebrating something professionally, I won't hit that like button. I'll actually send them a dedicated email directly, congratulating them, saying, hey, I'm here if you ever need anything. I do this thing when I come into cities. Can't see you right now, but I just want to let you know I was thinking about you. I do that like 20 times a day. Combined, I reach out, maybe 30 times a day, 150 times a week, 7,500 times I'm celebrating a year. I'm celebrating something that somebody's doing professionally to support and help them out. So they're there when I need them later. If I ask them to help me out, I'm fresh back of mind, right? I'm still connected with them. So it's a way to keep your network warm. Short form blogging, last thing, and then we'll jump. So one of the unique things about LinkedIn is it shows you the professional relationships that you have and how they're responding to the content that you're posting. It's super unique to this platform and the way that they do it. And so if I come down here and look at all of my posts, let's go into show all posts. For all of you, you're so rare and building a company to begin with. That I want you to start to share what you're going through on the experience with your network. 2 or 3 sentences. You don't have to do long content, long form blogging or anything like that. And then A/B tests on the messaging that you're sending out there, but always feel free to ask people to help you out because people don't know how to help you out unless you ask, all right? But if I come here into the posts, so I'm trying to do scheduling for talks in the fall. I asked my network to support and help me out, 3,800 impressions on this. Now, I talk to founders and co-founders. So this content should resonate with founders and co-founders. And when I see who's reading my content, it's the people, the audiences I should be reaching, right? So I'm brand aligned, I'm content aligned. If I come down here and look at the companies that are also engaging in my posts, they should be the big players. Google, Microsoft, Ford are showing up, right? So employees there are reading my content, which is helpful for the small companies I work with to connect the two together. And then I should be universal in my messaging. So people in other cities, countries should be looking at it. And you can see I reach a wide swath of different geographies on the content that I'm doing. So again, quick view of LinkedIn. I generally do this for an hour, but I'm shortening it up quite a bit. For all of you, I have a gift. We do a series of kind of free things for founders just to support them in the ecosystem. This is a landing page from me for the talks that I give. And one of the things that I want you to look at is the Entrepreneur's Toolkit. We synthesized all our learnings from all our programs, put it into like a framework of 16 different things that you need to do, and in video format, help you build each piece of your business. Super awesome, free for you all to utilize. I'm going to put it in chat right now. So you have that available. And with that, again, and kind of to lead back into Q&A, build a network before you need it. So it's there when you build a quality relational network, and dream big. Thank you for this, and happy to take questions.
Awesome, John. Thank you so much. That was super helpful. I definitely learned a lot about ways that I could use LinkedIn that I was really not aware of. And I'm super glad you kind of pointed out that old search feature because I've been struggling to find that for a while now. So thank you. So yeah, I think we have time for a couple questions. If anyone has them in the audience, please be sure to drop it in that Q&A function. We'll try to get to as many as possible. So first, can you maybe talk a little bit more about qualified deal flow and how entrepreneurs might evaluate how closely their business and its strategic goals and trajectory align with those investor interests and criteria?
Yeah, so a lot of it is like reverse engineering. So remember, we got down to like search terms for people in digital media in Atlanta that were in venture, right? And so then I can look at their profile and start to read a little bit deeper about who they are and what they're about. So like that's the search is the first stage. And then you actually have to engage in the content to kind of figure out, hey, is this the right person? Like, and so by the way, I'm not like I gave a framework on LinkedIn. You could use what I did on Google, like through Google search, through Twitter, through Threads. Like all these things. And so like, if I'm trying to connect with somebody, I'm looking at all those points of like publicly available information that they're supporting, content that they care about, you know, the connections that they have. And then I'm trying to create kind of an archetype of that person that they may be interested in what I'm doing because I'm reading all the things that they're talking about. So something we didn't show that like I would show in a regular session is you can search posts, right? So you can search all your first level posts for people who are talking about, you know, digital marketing or HR tech or artificial intelligence, right?
Right.
And you start to see, oh, wow, there are some people I'm connected to that care about this space. And by the way, people are reading their content. So they may be good ambassadors to learn about my company to support in their networks, right? So a lot of this is like utilizing the information that's available to read people and then figure out how to navigate them to support yourself. And I want to step back into one other thing because I know every single person here has fallen down on this. All of you have people in your network that you're no longer connected to, or you just met at a conference briefly or on an airplane or whatever, right? I would go in and prune your network. It's going to be more effective for you to do that so that you have the right names popping up. So you saw that I knew each one of those people as they popped up, and I have 12,000 connections, right? Vast majority of them are Techstars founders. We have 9,000 founders and participants. So it means I actually have a really small network based on the work that I've done historically as a spokesperson for LinkedIn or Techstars, things like that. So you can go into your connections and you can delete them. And all LinkedIn does is send them a certified letter saying that you no longer want to be connected to them. No, I'm just kidding. Like nothing happens, right? They just disappear. So like utilize that to like use this session to step out of that and start to, you know, be intentional about the relationships that can help you navigate the opportunities. And again, everything I did funding, talent, and customer acquisition. I did the first three, but you can find mentorship, you can find knowledge share, you can find partnerships, you know, like anything you need, you can find out of that framework that I just supported.
Yeah, I think that's great. And something I'm curious about, just, you know, thinking about a lot of entrepreneurs in the audience who may have limited resources and team support, you know, kind of how they might strike a balance between, because like we've, you know, talked about the importance of that quality network and, you know, keeping things, you know, actually relevant to that individual person and a little bit personalized. But at the same time, you know, trying to reach like a wider audience. So how do you kind of strike a balance there?
So reframe the question.
Yeah. So I guess in terms of like, we have some entrepreneurs who may want to make use of like a lead list and do more like mass outreach.
Yeah. Okay. I gotcha.
You know, like how can you like kind of think about the effectiveness of that versus like taking the time to like make personalized outreach to maybe a smaller number of people?
So I'll put it in terms that the people who are generating those lead lists, and depending on size and approach and target, right? If they get a 0.1 response rate, they're happy, right? I have like an 85% response rate. And it's because I've built the relationships to do that. Like that's why I'm in the role that I'm in, you know, like I've been so intentional about developing networks and relationships through the years. And I literally try to keep everybody in my sphere, right? 12,000 is hard to do. And, you know, it's constant effort. But again, when that network's there, like that network's there when I need it. And, you know, again, I go back to that approach is like a loose connection, right? I have like tight tension connections with people. And you know, one of my fellow colleagues wrote a note and said, "You make everybody feel like they're your friend." It's because I feel that way, right? Like, and so I think it's like not thinking about relationships as transactional, but thinking about them as emotional, right? Because everybody's trying to navigate this world, right? And if you care about them in the process and they know that, they'll care about you.
And I think that kind of just ties back to how this is kind of like a long-term investment of your time and your efforts, you know, like it takes, these relationships aren't going to just be built, you know, in a day, in a week, in a month, and nurturing them for a long term will actually, you know, potentially breed better results for your business. But, you know, it can be hard when you don't see those results right away, for sure. So, you know, just yeah, go ahead.
I was going to give you a quick story because it's an anecdote of that. And like, I actually love that this happened. So I was speaking at the Atlantic Venture Forum, which is in Halifax in Canada. It was their keynote 3 weeks ago. And I got on the plane and it was like 85 degrees here. So like
Oh
30
boy.
degrees Celsius for my Celsius folks, like just hot as all get out. And so I was wearing sandals, which I never do on the plane, like never do, right? But I was wearing sandals and I packed light on those trips because I'm like gone for 2 days. So it was like my backpack. Didn't think anything of it. And as I'm on the plane, I realized I forgot to bring shoes, right? I can't walk on stage with sandals. Like I'm not doing
No.
that, right? And so I wrote to social, I think it was Twitter, and I said, hey, I forgot shoes. And should I make a story about it on stage or should I try to acquire them? And I was flying in at like midnight and I was speaking at 9 a.m.
Oh
So
boy.
there were no shoe shops that were going to be open.
No.
Like I had no opportunity, right?
Yeah.
So network starts kind of rolling on it. And next thing I know, a connection in LA connects with somebody they know at Halifax. And when I get to the hotel to speak at 8, there's a pair of shoes there waiting for me.
Ah,
Right? Like, but that's the power of relationships, right? Those people cared enough to do that. Like I'm still like blown away that that happened.
totally.
But
Yeah.
they, if you're intentional about relationships and intentional in broadening them out, they'll be there for you. And
Mhm.
it doesn't make building a company any easier. Actually, it probably does make it a little bit easier, but like building a company is still sometimes going to feel lonely. It's going to feel taxing. It's,
Yeah.
like it's such a difficult thing to do. And again, I applaud everybody on here for doing it.
Mhm.
But it opens up the door for more access. And one of the biggest things that you need is
Mhm.
access, right? Access to capital, access to talent, access to networks, right? And if you're a good purveyor of relationships, it will come back to you. It is very karmic. And I go back to like that give first mentality. Live by that kind of ethos of helping other people. I promise you, I'll help you out.
Mhm. That's super helpful. So we have, I think, time for one more question. And there's a few entrepreneurs just kind of thinking about like, as like thinking logistically about how to kind of structure their days as somebody who's like, potentially a solopreneur.
Yep.
What are some ways that entrepreneurs can like effectively like take like a small amount of time like out of their day every day to kind of like invest in these efforts? Do you kind of have like a model that you use or that you've seen is effective?
Yeah, again, I take 28 minutes every day to celebrate people in my network and like connect them to other opportunities or people. And so in the course of that, it's probably like 20 people I interact with to 20 to 25 to 30, somewhere in there. But maybe like 10 introductions, right? I can do that in the course of 20 minutes, 30
Right.
minutes, right? So that's over a cup of coffee, that's a lunch break.
Right.
If I'm developing my lead list for investment, that actually should be a primary thing to really like dig into and make sure that, it's important. Carve 15 minutes
Yeah.
every Friday morning to do it, right? It's based on individuality. Again, I've given a framework and I've probably opened eyes on how to navigate things a little bit differently, right? Tactics that everybody on here can use when they walk out of this webinar.
Mhm.
But like I think there has to be intentionality on relationships, and it's funny because it's like the thing that nobody talks about,
Totally.
right? Product development, go to market, fundraising, right? Hiring, but they don't talk about relationships. But
Mhm.
we're all in a relational world, and especially with artificial intelligence, it goes back to me saying that that's a horizontal now, not a vertical, right?
Right.
Because it's going to cut through everything. The piece of that AI can't do is this, the face-to-face experience, right? The developing that relationship where you're pairing one person to another. That's going to continue to exist, right?
Totally.
And so
Love
it's
that.
important for people to be able to broker relationships effectively. Doesn't matter if you're an extrovert or introvert. Find what your comfortability is in it and operate that way. If you're an introvert and you want to do more of this online, great. If you're an extrovert and you want to do more in person, great. Pick what works for you and run with it.
Awesome. Thank you. All right. We are out of time. But John, if you had one quick piece of advice that you wanted to just leave with the audience, something you carry with you, what would that be?
Yeah. So, again, from an entrepreneurial perspective, I'm a big believer. So one of my favorite quotes is being an entrepreneur is like jumping off a cliff and trying to build the plane before it hits the ground, right? It is like literally just a unique, harrowing
Yeah.
experience, right? But people like yourselves, right? What you're doing here, people like us, we're trying to bring the ground up or extend the runway, right? Find the people who do that, mobilize those, bring them closer to your world. it'll make life so much easier.
Awesome. John, thank you so much for being here. And just such a great overview of just mastering insight. Your insights were so incredible. On behalf of the NASDAQ Entrepreneurial Center and everyone here today, we are just so thankful that you joined us.
Michelle, Anna, thank you for setting everything up. Appreciate it.
Awesome. And to everyone in attendance today, we'd love for you to join us for upcoming webinars, which you can view by using the link that's going to be posted in the chat. And thank you all so much for joining us today. We look forward to welcoming you back online with us soon.